Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Today's show is brought to you by PrepareWise. Rough weather's ahead, so it's time to prepare. Your leading source for emergency preparedness food. Go to preparewise.com and always use the code Lutz to get free shipping and a whole lot more. You are listening to the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1230 WBZT. Rates still headed higher. The housing bubble looks like it has burst. And here to talk about it, none other than Andy Hoffman. Andy, how are you?
Good. With my new crying baby in the background, I will try to focus.
Well, if it's not a baby, it's a dog.
Right.
What's the difference?
Screeching dog.
Yeah, so what about this? We were led to believe that the reflation of the housing market, all was well. You could flip it and you could make your fortune in real estate. And it looks like maybe it's not quite working out the way they said.
Well, look, as we've been saying all along, there's nothing strange about it. The entire supposed boom in housing was nothing more than the Fed doing QE4 and pushing rates to not just lows relative to inflation, but all-time lows, which is absolutely insane given the record debt, record inflation, record everything that's going on that should point to otherwise. The actual boom itself is nothing compared to the losses that we saw in housing in the prior 5 years. But for those lucky people at Blackstone and Wall Street that have been able to invest in their rent-to-own market, they made a few bucks for a few minutes, and they're probably selling right now. We just saw on Friday a drop of a whopping 21% in new home sales in July versus June during the peak selling season. And that's after the mortgage rates barely went over 1%. So that should tell you where we stand right now. Not to mention today's durable goods orders for August, down an incredible 7.5% in 1 month.
Yeah, that's a lot of unsold washing machines at Sears and at Best Buy, isn't it?
Right, and of course, Home Depot and Lowe's had good quarters. Not that it matters if they beat earnings by a penny or whatever it is, but they had good quarters in the second quarter, when all this was going on. So, of course, the mainstream is writing how amazing this is because of course they sold a lot of washing machines in May, because that's when the peak happened. Now you're going to see Home Depot and Lowe's have plummeting sales in the third quarter. And, notwithstanding the PPT, it just makes the valuations in the stock market even more incredible. I mean, we're in some metrics approaching the 2000 levels. Of course, in 2000, interest rates were much, much higher and could be taken down, whereas here they're near record lows and can only go up.
Okay, so what's your guess what's going to happen in the housing with the private equity and the hedge funds? Are they going to flee the market now? You think that's what's going to happen next?
Yeah, and I just noticed this new stock, American Homes for Rent.
Oh, yes,
AMH,
yes, I know that one.
Which just went public, and I mean, it just went public a month ago or so. I mean, if that doesn't show you a peak that they even named a company this silly, basically, it's all Wall Street in the game. Wall Street buys and Wall Street sells. There's no long-term investment in this stuff. And the thing is, what they've done is they've created soaring rental rates, so that only hurts people's ability to live. So there's even less money around to buy houses, now, particularly now that interest rates are going up. And that just strains business and capital spending on top of that. So my prediction, if you call it a prediction, is that we've peaked in this boom. In fact, I wrote last week about how I remember maybe a 3-week span in May where my neighbors were all talking about house prices, and that suddenly died. I mean, it is as dead as can be. No one's talking about it. So, we peaked in May or June, and whether housing plummets or just sits at these levels and doesn't do anything doesn't matter. The fact is the economy is again in free fall, and the Fed is going to have to announce QE5 at some time in the future, whether it's at their September meeting, which would be the ultimate irony, given that it was supposed to be when they were going to be tapering, or they say, we'll just hold on and try to save face and then they wait until December or whatever, they're going to do it. And then they're going to do 6, 7, 8, and infinity. And I still believe that when Congress comes back, they're not going to raise the debt ceiling. I think they're going to eliminate it entirely, which to me is the ultimate in hyperinflationary signals.
You really think that's going to happen, huh?
Well, look, they're masters in wording things in different ways. It's contingent on this, and, we create the sequester and blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, in reality, of course, they're raising it to infinity. But I would not be surprised if they either raise it to infinity or give it some kind of contingency to rise exponentially without officially getting rid of it.
Huh. So, yeah, then they won't have to have that fight again, if nothing else, right?
Yeah, I mean, does anyone remember the what happened on New Year's Eve this year with the? Can you remember what it's called already? Before the sequester, the fiscal cliff.
Yeah, the cliff. What cliff? There was no cliff.
The fact is, they canceled in that deal. They canceled half of the cuts, and then since then they've canceled even more of the cuts, like the airline traffic controllers, et cetera, et cetera. And the fact is that the deficits keep going up. The only places that they don't go up is in their accounting, where they pretend that there's a lower deficit. Of course, there's no lower deficit. And now that interest rates have risen 1 measly %, that increases the annual debt service by $170 billion on a $17 trillion debt. And remember, they have a ton of debt that's coming due in the next 2 years. That's going to have to be refinanced. This is the U.S. Treasury.
Or monetized. Or monetized, probably. Hey, by the way, have you noticed that on the official website, the U.S. debt has not gone up for like months? You notice that?
Because they hide it. It's the same thing they did in 2011 before they ultimately raised it. They're borrowing from other liabilities they have, like the pension fund system, and putting it toward the debt, but they're giving IOUs. So they're just pushing the debt off balance sheet into other areas until they do this fiscal cliff, until they do a new debt ceiling, and then they all of a sudden pay them back, and the debt shoots right up. That's exactly what happened in 2011.
It's pure fraud, in other words, right?
Yeah, I mean, and they've already done it. I mean, they're not tricking anyone. They're doing exactly what they did 2 years ago, and everyone sees it.
So it's just the game. It's just the game.
Yeah, I mean, we're at 17 trillion now, and of course that doesn't include Fannie and Freddie, which have somewhere around 5 trillion, but they are off balance sheet for some reason that I don't know. And then you have the unfunded liabilities. So whatever number you pick, it's dramatically higher, and it's going up at an accelerating rate. Remember, there's the cash, there's cash numbers. It's like there's earnings and there's cash flow, and that's the difference between the U.S. national debt and what the U.S. actually owes. We may say that it's X, but the number that we're paying is a lot higher than X.
Of course, yeah. Yep, we know that. And then there's intra-government that the government owes to itself, like, that the Social Security is owed to the Social Security Trust Fund and all that good stuff. And, somehow it's all fraudulent. That much you can be certain of, right? I can't believe from
my sell side days, I can't remember the term for intra-company revenues and stuff, where it kind of you have to back it out, and I just can't remember the name of it. But that's exactly what it is. It's a nice little
adjusting entry, an adjusting entry, right?
Yeah, it's used as it's needed to be used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a total scam. So don't believe any of it, friends. It's all fraudulent accounting, and that's what you really need to know, right?
Yes, and it's been the same for as long as we've been watching, but more so each day. I mean, it's very scary the direction the country is going in all facets, and it just simply comes down to, look, we peaked economically, and so the governments to maintain control need to be more draconian in everything they do. I mean, look at the Syria thing. I mean, how much has this been telegraphed over the last few years that this will be the next thing we do to draw the public's attention? And this time around, I mean, it could get ugly. You have the Russians taking the other side, the Chinese taking the other side. You just never know when it'll turn into something World War II like, which I do expect sometime in the future, and I hope it's very far in the future, but wouldn't be surprised if it's not.
Yeah, that thing just has all the indicia of a false flag kind of event, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you have this chemical attack that they're, the only people in the world blaming Assad himself are us. And everyone else is doing what they should do, say, we're not even sure what it is. It's like the Egyptians, they won't call it a coup, even though it's a coup. They just decide to take their own spin on things,
Yeah. Hey, and no shortage of bad things happening in the world, is there?
No, it all comes down to money. People don't have money, bad things happen. When there's a sense of prosperity, when people are more relaxed about things, governments don't impose on people's lives, and people aren't as angry. I mean, it's that simple. The whole world peaked after following this 40-year horrible experiment in fiat currency. For a while, it looked like it was sustainable, and people around the world were seeing increased standards of living, or most parts of the world, and now that it's
the illusion of it, right?
Yeah, and now that diminishing returns kicked in, and now it's going the opposite direction, you're seeing the signs of, the aftermath of it everywhere.
Yeah, nothing's looking good out there, and except for our old buddies, gold and silver, right?
Yep, they've clearly bottomed, that's for sure. And anyone who's watching today can see that this summer, the line in the sand with the cartel was 1,300, and this is getting comical. Just starting Friday, we've now been stopped at exactly 1,400 5 different times, including the 12 o'clock cap of last resort, which I've been talking about for years. And, they're just fighting and fighting and fighting. But, 1,300 fell with a flourish, and 1,400 will fall, of course. And by the next thing you look up, 1920 will fall, and people will be looking at new all-time highs. And, of course, remember, it's not just in the dollar that we're talking about. We're talking about worldwide, because other currencies right now are in free fall, and right now yen gold and Indian rupee gold are pretty close to their all-time highs.
We'll talk more about that up next on the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz. We're talking with Andy Hoffman on 1230 WBZT. I want to welcome our new sponsor, Audible. I've been listening to audiobooks from them for over 5 years now. I am a huge Audible fan. In fact, I've bought multiple Platinum memberships. Platinum membership, you buy 25 audiobooks at a time. I just got done listening to the first 3 or 4 books of the Jack Reacher series, the one you probably saw, or maybe you didn't, in the theater, Tom Cruise movie. I mean, just a wonderful book, wonderful series, expertly narrated, and so many times I'm in the car, I get sick of listening to music or news or the radio. I just put my iPod on, plays the book, and makes that trip go by so quickly. To me, this is one of the great things of the information revolution of the internet, is that you can get over 100,000 books on your iPad or iPod or iPhone instantly. Another thing that they have is courses on Audible, the Modern Scholar series. And I've listened to lectures about World War I, Shakespeare, nanotechnology, detective novels. It's so enlightening. To me, Audible is a must-have killer app for the iPhone, the iPad, for my computer, wherever I am. I'm always downloading these books. Like I say, they're a sponsor, so check them out. They've got a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial membership. Just sign up at audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, Lutz. Again, audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. Sign up today. Like I say, this to me is a dream sponsor. These are exactly the types of things that I like to pass on to you because I'm such a fanatical, over-the-top Audible user. 5-6 years I've been listening, hundreds of books. I used to think I was a well-read person, and it's a little strange when somebody asks you, did you read that book? And you have to say, well, somebody actually read it to me, but they actually did a better job than I could have, so I don't mind it. But my friend Sean Perger up in Vancouver, he listens to almost as many as I do, and he can't get enough. I know you're going to love this company, love their service. I do. So check them out. audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. And we're back. I'm Kerry Lutz on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com. We've got Andy Hoffman of Miles Franklin on 1230 WBZT. So, Andy, the rupee, India, that is a frightening situation. I mean, the world's second most populous country, and they're witnessing a bit of a currency collapse, aren't they?
Yeah, arguably the largest, depending on how you measure population. It gets pretty hard when you're in that 1.5 billion range. And Dick, we were talking about this last week about the rupee. That was when it was at 61 rupees to the dollar. Now it's 64.5. I mean, we are talking about all-out free fall in major currencies. And I'm just waiting for the riots to start like they did in Brazil. By the way, the Brazilian real is down, the great mighty brick Brazil. The real is down even more than the rupee this year. It's down something like 30% just this year alone. And these are big countries that constitute major populations. And obviously the biggest reason is the exportation of inflation from the printing presses of the West. But, these currencies these current governments voluntarily joined the fiat currency system. But no place is it more of a sin than in India, where the people don't even consider their net worth in terms of rupees. They still think in terms of gold and silver. They're trying to keep the people from buying it. Idiots like Jim Rogers, who like to get on TV, were saying last month, oh, well, that means gold will go down. I wrote an article saying Jim Rogers is an idiot, and guess what? Gold's up $200 since he said that. The fact is, smuggling in gold in India is off the charts, and it's going to be a major black market that's going to overwhelm these people. And I think that they're going to be storming the palaces in Delhi or wherever. I don't even know where the capital is anymore in India at some point, just like in Brazil, Turkey, and all these other places. Egypt, you name it.
Yeah, well, it's so ingrained into their blood that even when the Indians emigrate to the U.S., they're still acquiring gold. I have a good friend here whose family's all professionals, all lawyers and doctors and other professionals. And you know what they store their savings in, Andy?
I do. The same thing I store mine in.
You got it. And they're sophisticated people, all highly educated, more educated probably than you and I, Andy, and we're pretty well educated. And whenever they have spare cash in the fiat repository, they go to gold. Amazing. And obviously they know something that most of you don't.
Yeah, people should watch the 60 Minutes piece from, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. I think it's called Indians' Love Affair with Gold, where you get a sense of what it's like there. But I'm telling you from reading a lot, if you ask an average Indian about their net worth, they're not going to tell you it's in rupees. I mean, maybe a couple of the bankers might, if they can print them for themselves. But the majority of people, I ask you, what's your net worth? You'll say $1 million, $30,000. If I ask an Indian that, they're going to talk in terms of the real assets that they own, starting with gold and silver. And so when the government is trying to tell them, the government came in, it's, I talk about it like it's apartheid. This tiny group of, this minority of people that no one wants to listen to comes in and tries to impose their will on the public. And of course it's going to collapse. They came in and destroyed the currency, and now the people want their real currency back, and they're going to get it one way or the other.
Hey, well, I just got this great fax here, Andy. A Florida-based billion-dollar-plus buyer wants to explore opening up immediate negotiations to purchase all or part of the Financial Survival Network, Kerry. They spelled my name wrong, of course. Please call me at Alex Hamilton, Vice President. Well, maybe my ship came in and I could just put all the proceeds into buying gold and silver.
Is that a real email?
It's a fax, so I don't have much confidence because very few people send faxes now. So, but maybe they're Indians and they'll pay me in gold and silver.
Maybe someone will buy the no longer used Ranting Andy name.
Hey, you never know. There could be value in there, Andy.
Yes.
Oh man, but it's pretty remarkable. For some reason, I can't see Indians marching into the street rioting unless there's no food. That's kind of where the Indians draw the line, and they just say, the heck with it. We've had enough. We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. But up until that point where there's no food, they'll kind of just take it.
But that's the whole point with India. Like Egypt, Indians spend more of their income on food than nearly any other nation.
Right.
And it's a giant nation. The government even admitted last month that food inflation was 12% last year. Of course, what I read is that it's dramatically higher. In some, I read onions, it's 50 to 100%, and that's their staple.
Wow.
That's like hamburger meat here.
Yeah, I know.
And, and that's the government admitting that kind of number. So it's really bad there. And now that the rupee's down, I think 25% just in the last 3 months. That's like what happened to the yen. I mean, we're going to see massive increases in resources there. They're not a big resource producer. They have to import their oil. They have to import probably a lot of their foodstuffs. So,
you're right.
At some point soon, I believe. I don't mean a year or two. I mean, I just wrote a piece called "India: The Next Egypt," and I really believe that that's going to happen. I think they're going to overthrow these monsters that have destroyed this at one point looked like to be an emerging nation, and now they're moving back to the third world again.
Hey, you know where else they're having a lot of fun in that regard? Turkey.
Oh.
The Turkish lira is imploding as well.
Yeah, remember the riots there just a few months ago?
Well, they're going to have more because they're having the same type of thing going on there as well. And as long as you have politicians screwing around, well, I've been doing a lot of deep thinking, which in Florida is not conducive to deep thinking. You spent time here, you know what I'm talking about. This is not the land of the deep thinkers, okay? And I'm not being a snooty New Yorker and saying this. The weather's too nice. People want to have fun. They know how to party in this place. Let's put it charitably. But I've got my group of people who are like not that type. So what is the Federal Reserve's real purpose here, Andy, when you get down to it? Okay.
Well, its initial purpose was for the banks to kind of control the economy, and now it's morphed into its only purpose is just to prevent the whole system from collapsing. They meet every single minute, every single day. They probably have instant messaging and Skype and all these things all day long, saying, what do we do next? Look at gold. It keeps going to 1,400. Keep naked shorting it. Don't let the Dow go down with those durable goods number orders. Do not let the 10-year yield go over 3%. We got a meeting next week. We got Jackson Hole. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? They're partners with whoever the current administration is. As soon as Obama's out, they'll just figure out who their next puppet is, and whether it's a Republican or Democrat doesn't matter. Right now, it's just about saving their little status quo before the system implodes.
Exactly. And in addition to all that, they have to finance the deficit, right?
That's right. They got to monetize everything without everything falling apart. The tightrope, that's burning on both sides.
And what is inflation when you get down to it?
It's burning money.
Right. And it's a stealth tax, right?
Yeah. Right. Is there one aspect of life that's going down in price? In fact, the only thing I find ominously, I'm still trying to figure it out after being an oil analyst for 10 years, is I'm not sure what it's like in Florida, but the gasoline prices here in Denver really have, if anything, been creeping down in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Even though the crude oil price is soaring, and it's so hard to decipher that. I know they talk about there's maintenance for the refiners and blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, I think demand is just that soft that the oil companies would rather take the losses on the retailing end than take them on the upstream end, because they know that if they move the gasoline prices up with the oil prices right now, like right now we're at $3.35, if they moved it up to $3.75 where it should be, then things would really get crushed, because that's what oil companies do. They're integrated. That's why they call the majors integrated. They can take a loss on either side, and I think that's what they're doing, taking a loss on the downstream side, because they know there's no demand there.
And what with the lessened demand, they're exporting the product anyway and picking up money that they would be losing here. They're making money on the exported product wherever they're shipping it off to, wherever it may be. Maybe it's China, I don't know, maybe it's South America, not sure, but they're definitely picking up on the margin someplace else, man. Those guys have it figured out. You know, let's face it, they run the world. You know, they're part of the elites. You know, just scratch the surface. What is BP? BP is the Queen of England's oil company. Don't kid yourself, right?
But the fact is that the governments, forget us, the governments are bigger than the oil companies, and the government of China and the government of India, all these, they are importing oil. In fact, the government of the United States are importing oil at $106 a barrel, or whatever the equivalent is overseas. So that just increases the deficits and increases the taxes that they're going to charge to the people, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, we are ultimately getting hurt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no question about it. So
let's attack Syria. That would be a good idea.
Yeah, take everybody's attention. Yeah, whatever it takes, you know, doesn't really matter. But whatever they need to do, they'll do. But it's just interesting to watch how the whole thing is teetering, and they're doing their best. But getting back to what Ben Bernanke's job is, so inflation is a stealth tax. We agree on that?
Absolutely.
So he's really the biggest taxing authority out there when you get down to it. Because how much does the IRS really bring in nowadays, now that everybody's incomes are shot to hell? Not as much as they used to.
That's how the Fed operates. I mean, the only people that benefit from the Fed are the banks that own them, because they get the money to throw into all these speculations, and you know, with the money flowing into the market with the daily open market operations. And then when there's a problem, they get bailed out. So we're bailed in this case.
And then
is what we're going to see next.
And then he buys up all the treasury bonds that they need to finance the government, and then we all suffer in terms of diminished purchasing power. So he is the world's leading taxing agent when you get down to it. That's what it comes down to, right?
That is until people start selling those bonds. And as we know, in June, forget what we're going to see for July and August numbers. June was the single worst selling month for China and Japan of Treasury bonds ever. They sold $42 billion just in June. Think of what they did in July and August, since rates have really gone up. So that just means more QE.
Yep. So that's his function. So, yeah, well, here's the thing in Yahoo. As Syria turmoil escalates, where's worry of $200 oil? If there's no demand, you don't have to worry about oil going up.
There's nothing to do with demand when you're printing money. When they do QE5, 6, 7, there's nothing to do with demand. That's what Sinclair's been saying for years. You know, the difference between the cost push and demand pull. This is cost push. You print money, and it increases the paper price of anything out there.
Yep, and our price of oil has been locked in at $105. Oh, you know what we didn't talk about, and we've got very little time, but we need to address it. What the heck happened to the NASDAQ last week?
That's funny. My piece on Friday, I believe it was Friday, was about that very thing.
I know.
Because, look, in fact, it happened today in some market called the Eurex market, which I'm not sure if it's a giant market or a small market, but they were shut down for an hour. The fact is, I've been writing about these things for years, why you got to stay out of these dumb markets. Remember the Bats, that company Bats, which runs all these things, had their IPO and the stock collapsed that day. And then you had Night Trading, which was the number one market maker for years, nearly going bankrupt because they screwed the whole market up with algos. Now you had the whole NASDAQ go down for 3 hours due to a glitch, which they don't tell you about. And that's the day after, if you remember, Goldman had like hundreds of millions of dollars of accidental options trades, which, because they own everything, they are getting to, renege on. The fact is, the paper markets are run by computers, which are running amok, and why anyone would play in those is beyond me. It's just a license to, not even a steal. They don't even steal. They don't even know what they're doing. And someday we'll wake up and the markets won't even work. Won't even be a crisis. They'll just completely implode on themselves. Remember the flash crash 3 years ago? Well, that was nothing compared to what's coming.
Yeah, that will be child's play, won't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I don't touch these paper markets.
Yeah, keep your distance. Just just understand that you'd probably be better off going to the casino. Oh, one final thing, and this
it would be, by the way.
Yeah.
Go on.
Just one final thing, and this has just been funny because I've been watching it. Trump University, he's getting sued by the New York Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, and, Trump is never one to take any abuse from a petty doyen bureaucrat, and he's just been slamming this Schneiderman guy, man, come after me. I'll spend $500 million defending myself and suing your department. I'll put all of your 1,500 lawyers to work, with the discovery request. It's just been really amusing to watch. I think the thing was probably a licensee deal that ran amok, and, but it's all entertaining, to watch. I don't know if you caught it.
Now I'm sick of it, but years past, I thought The Apprentice was a very watchable show. Now I can't even look at it anymore.
Yeah, well, it's,
Look, the fact is, I'm writing a piece today about East versus West, and, I don't think anyone epitomizes, how the West has declined more than Trump. I mean, he's a silver spoon. He didn't start with all. He started with all that money. He's lost. He's been bankrupted millions of times before, or millions, many times before, and he's a blight on society. And he represents everything that's wrong with America.
Yeah, and then some. Even things that aren't wrong with it. So,
and his casinos suck. They're horrible. So
yeah, they weren't even his anymore. They went under. That was another bankrupt entity of his. So, but it's just nice to see him put the screws to some bureaucrat and say, "I'm not taking your garbage,"
right.
And go for it. On that note, we got to go for it as well. Andy, milesfranklin.com. Sign up for his newsletter. It's enjoyable reading, as well as Bill Holter's daily missive. I never miss either one. And till next week, Andy, the formerly ranting, but no longer still ranting, but now he's just our Andy Hoffman.
Yes, I look forward to it.
All right. Have a good one. We'll talk to you next week.
Great.
Bye. This show was brought to you by PrepareWise. They're the leading producer of certified GMO-free, chemical-free, organic emergency preparedness food. I buy all my emergency preparedness food there, and you should too. I like the 183-serving mega sample pack. It's an amazing value. It's $280. That's less than $2 per meal. Go to preparewise.com. That's preparewise.com and use the code LUTZ, L-U-T-Z, to get free shipping and much more.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.